Hello, and welcome to A Path Less Travelled UK, Brompton Cemetery to Battersea Power Station tour. My name is Marcy, and as with all of my walking guides, the aim of this tour is to make travelling between points of interest more interesting. For the main attractions, please make full use of the guides at the sites to get the most of your visit. Before proceeding, please ensure you have listened to the introduction on YouTube or read it on the A Path Less Travelled UK Facebook or Instagram pages. This will give you all the relevant information, such as important safety notices, as you are responsible for your well-being at all times on these tours. Also, don't listen to the commentary while walking. Keep alert of your surroundings and find a safe spot to stop and listen. The next photos are from Google Maps, giving an overview of the area we're covering. There are also detailed maps within each section of commentary to assist you in finding your way around. The tour takes approximately an hour, not accounting for stopping at the sites. Also note that Brompton Cemetery is a key part of this tour, so if Victorian cemeteries aren't your thing, you should perhaps take another one of our tours instead. Now, assuming you're up to speed on the general premise of these self-guided walking tours, let's begin. Today's tour focuses on Brompton Cemetery, Chelsea Old Church, the Albert Bridge, the features of Battersea Park, and Battersea Power Station. I appreciate that some of you may be surprised to find a cemetery featured on a tour, but trust me, this isn't your average cemetery. We're starting today's tour at West Brompton Underground Station, which is found on the District Line, Wimbledon branch. As you exit the station, turn immediately right and walk along Old Brompton Road until you reach the northern gate entrance to the cemetery. Once inside the gate, see if the Friends of Brompton Cemetery Centre is open, just inside on the left. If it is, go inside for a map of the graves and have a chat to the fantastic volunteers who are charming as well as knowledgeable. I will point out my favourites, but with over 100 points of interest, please don't limit yourself to just my highlights. Pause commentary until you reach there. Brompton Cemetery is one of the Magnificent Seven cemeteries that opened in the early Victorian period to alleviate the problem of where to bury the city's dead, as the churchyards were all full. They were opened by private companies and run as businesses, but they were also vital green spaces near the dirty and industrial heart of London. Brompton Cemetery is now owned by the Crown and managed by the Royal Parks. Though still a working cemetery, it is also a nature reserve, so not everything will be tidy and pristine. If at any point you get the feeling of déjà vu, it could be you have seen one of the films that feature the cemetery. These include the 2009 version of Sherlock Holmes, GoldenEye, Stormbreaker, and Johnny English. I want to stress again that I am only scraping the tip of the iceberg with the handful of individuals, and there are a wealth of characters to discover. If you have been lucky enough to get a map from the Friends Centre, please pause and have a good look through it and find the graves of people that interest you the most as well. Once you exit the Friends building, go back to the main path that runs down the centre of the cemetery and take the first path almost immediately to the left. A short way down on the right-hand side, you will find the grave of Dr. John Snow. No, not that John Snow. This one knew quite a lot. Pause commentary until you reach there. You may not have heard of Dr. Snow before, but he discovered that cholera was spread by infected drinking water in 1854, resulting in millions of lives being saved. He was also the first specialist anaesthetist in Britain, mastering the use of ether in 1847, saving people from the trauma of being awake during surgery. A truly remarkable man. You can understand why physicians rallied to have his monument restored after it was damaged by a bomb in World War II. Next, please return to the main path and turn left. A short way down on the left-hand side, next to a tree, is the grave of Emmeline Pankhurst. Pause commentary until you reach there. If you remember no other person buried in this cemetery, I ask you to remember Emmeline Pankhurst. Though I don't support the tactics of arson and bombing carried out by her group, Women's Social and Political Union, I do respect that Mrs. Pankhurst and her fellow suffragettes were willing to be arrested multiple times and go on hunger strikes, all in the name of campaigning for women's rights. This centered around wanting the right to vote, which was only partially realized in her lifetime. In 1918, all men over 21 and women over 30 were given the right to vote, the excuse being that they didn't want men's votes outnumbered after so many men died in the First World War. The right for both men and women to vote from 21 years old was granted on the 2nd of July, 1928, just a few weeks after Mrs. Pankhurst passed away. There is a statue commemorating her in Victoria Tower Gardens South by the Houses of Parliament. Please continue down the main path and take the second path on the left after Emmeline Pankhurst's grave. At the end of the path, just before you reach the steps, tucked behind some other graves on the right-hand side, you will find the grave of Sir Henry Cole. Pause commentary until you reach there. I will not hesitate in sharing with you that I was disappointed to find his grave in this condition. I am trying to see what can be done about it. It is a rather humble marker to a man that founded the Victoria and Albert Museum and is credited with inventing Christmas cards. He was passionate about education and was key to the development of the National Art Training School, now the Royal College of Art, as well as contributing to the establishment of Imperial College London and the Royal College of Music. It is said that he was Prince Albert's right-hand man in the launching of the Great Exhibition in 1851. Indeed, whenever the prince wanted to get a project off the ground, he is supposed to have said, "We must have steam, get coal." There is a section of the Victoria and Albert Museum called the Henry Cole Wing, and he is commemorated with a blue plaque where he lived near the museum at 33 Thurlow Square. Next, please take the first path on the left that you come to when facing the main path and go down until you see a large tomb on the right in the center of a circular path. Pause commentary until you reach there. The mausoleum of Hannah Courtoy isn't being highlighted for her impact on history. Rather, her impressive Egyptian-inspired tomb has become the subject of curiosity after it was declared to contain a time machine. This questionable theory seems to stem from the fact that the tomb was designed by Hannah's friends, Joseph Bonamy, who is buried nearby, reflecting his career as an Egyptologist, and Samuel Alfred Warner, an eccentric inventor. I think the fact that the latter is now considered a charlatan should be enough to quash such theories, but because he died in mysterious circumstances in December 1853, this was enough to fuel a rumor that it must have been related to his work on the time machine. He is buried in the cemetery in an unmarked grave. The key to the mausoleum has been lost for over 150 years, so it has never been opened to check for a time machine, if only locksmiths existed. Jokes aside, sometimes the mystery is better than knowing the truth. If you head back to the main path, shortly before you reach it, on the right-hand side, is the headstone of Joseph Bonamy, who I just mentioned. Look out for the dark stone with the carving of a cross at the top and the depiction of Anubis, the Egyptian god of death, at the base. Once you reach the main path, continue straight across it and take the first path on the left. A short way down on the left-hand side, you will see the stunning tomb of Frederick Leyland. Pause commentary until you reach there. You may assume, looking at this grave, that Leyland must have been an artist, but this is a case of it's not what you know, it's who you know. Leyland was one of the largest ship owners at the time, with 25 steamships to his name. He invested his considerable wealth by commissioning artwork from several of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. This included Dante Gabriel Rossetti, Edwin Burne-Jones, and James Abbott McNeill Whistler. This tomb was designed by Burne-Jones and is much grander than the simple plaque the artist has in a churchyard in East Sussex. A few steps further down on the left is another striking tomb belonging to Val C. Prinsep. Pause commentary until you reach there. Valentine Prinsep was the son-in-law to Frederick Leyland. Prinsep was a lesser-known Pre-Raphaelite painter, though one of his paintings, Delhi Durbar, was presented to Queen Victoria and displayed in Buckingham Palace. He also painted one of the murals at the Oxford Union, along with Rossetti and his friends, and became close friends with Rossetti until his death. This tomb was sold to Leyland as a 13th century Sienese saint memorial, but it is now believed to be fake. The bronze medallions at either end are dedicated to Valentine and his wife Florence. Next, continue down the path and take the first left that you come to. Follow this path all the way down until you come to a large tomb with a statue of a lion perched on the top of it. Pause commentary until you reach there. John Gentleman Jackson was an English boxer that served as a bodyguard at King George IV's coronation. The gentleman nickname was given to him as he was from the middle class, and at the time boxers were usually from the working class. He ran a highly successful boxing academy in Bond Street, where, among his many influential clients, was the poet Lord Byron. He helped found the Pugilistic Club in 1814 to regulate the running of prize fighting as a sport. He was also generous to charity, running boxing matches to raise funds for the British prisoners of war in France in 1812, for example. Such was his popularity that when he passed away in 1845, his friends and admirers raised £400, which is £61,000 in today's money, to create this monument to him. He shares it with his niece and adopted daughter Elizabeth, who is said to have been holding his hand when he passed. Now please return to the main path and turn left, and you will soon be surrounded by elegant columns forming the upper part of the catacombs. If you go down the steps, you can peek through the bars at the numerous shelves built to hold coffins. This was cheaper than having your own burial plot, but the idea never really caught on here. I can't help but think that may have had something to do with grave robbing being rife in the 19th century, but that's just my musings. Continue down the path past the catacombs into the Great Circle. Take the circular path to the left, and just before you reach the turning on the left to the steps to the second colonnade, look out for a small silver disc with the number 16 on it in the pavement. Pause commentary until you reach there. If you look at the second row of graves from the front, and at the one on the right next to the path, you will see a carving of a wolf in the center of the cross. This was the grave of Chief Longwolf. This leader of the Oglala Sioux tribe is said to have fought in the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876, when General Custer's troops were defeated. When the U.S. military finally defeated the Sioux, Longwolf joined Buffalo Bill Cody's Wild West show to avoid repercussions. He traveled, often with his family, all over America and Europe. When he passed away at 59, possibly from pneumonia, his wife feared that he would be dumped overboard if she tried to take him home, so Buffalo Bill paid for the plot in Brompton Cemetery, having the gravestone made with the wolf carving, as the chief had requested. In the 1990s, Elizabeth Knight came across the story of Chief Longwolf and set about finding his descendants. After contacting his granddaughter, Jessie Blackfeather, his remains were sent to the tribe's ancestral burial grounds at Wounded Knee, South Dakota. I don't normally agree with remains being moved from their resting place, but as a tribal chief put it, the spirit remains with the bones, and the bones will finally be at rest among his own. Next, go up the path next to Chief Longwolf's grave, up the stairs, and turn left, going down the next set of steps and turn right onto the path. Follow it until you are almost at the small staircase by the boundary wall. Shortly before the steps, on the right-hand side, you will see a dirt path. Go along the path, and sitting fairly secluded is an urn-style monument to Marchesa Louisa Casati. Pause commentary until you reach there. I must confess I only searched for this grave as the friend of Brompton Cemetery I spoke to said it was her favorite, but I'm so glad I did. It wasn't so much the urn with the floral detail that got me, or even reading the tales of her flamboyant lifestyle. It was the tiny grave gifts that people have left, including a miniature perfume bottle that I found endearing. Make your way back to the Great Circle by retracing your steps to Chief Longwolf's grave. Turn left onto the circular path, and then left again onto the main path once more. A bit further down on the right-hand side is the bright white grave of Metropolitan Antony, which is the most visited grave in the cemetery. Pause commentary until you reach there. Remembering that Brompton is a private cemetery, so any faith can be buried here, Metropolitan Antony was the head of the Russian Orthodox Patriarchal Church in Great Britain and Ireland from 1963 to 1974. He chose at that time to step back and devote his remaining years to his flock. He worked almost up until his death in 2003. Continue walking up to the chapel and take the path to the right. Follow it until you reach the path running parallel with the back of the chapel. On the opposite side of the path, on the right, you will find a broken column grave marker for Percy Lambert. Pause commentary until you reach there. I wouldn't be my father's daughter if I didn't highlight the first person to drive at 100 miles per hour, which was achieved in a 4.5-litre side valve Talbot. Sadly, the broken column in gravestones represents a life cut short, and that is definitely true in Mr. Lambert's case. He died while attempting to reclaim the world record, which he had promised his fiancée he would give up racing after. He was only 32 years old. Please go back to the path you just crossed, turn right, and follow it to the end. Turn right onto the next path, and follow it down to just before the point where the next path joins from the right. On the left-hand side is the impressive tomb of Robert Coombs. Pause commentary until you reach there. Again, with a nod to my father who once won a canoe race in a homemade rowboat, I couldn't resist pointing out this monument to Robert Coombs, who was considered one of the greatest oarsmen of his time, winning the championship course in 1846. Though he had a successful career, he died in poverty, and the tomb was paid for by public subscription, the GoFundMe of the day, and was erected in 1866. Now please turn right if you are facing the monument and continue down the path to the end where you will find the gates exiting the cemetery. Pause commentary until you reach there. As soon as you exit the gates, turn left and you will see this sign that has been there since the cemetery opened, encouraging people to use the space. Continue down Fulham Road, crossing Ifield Road and Finborough Road in turn. Just after crossing Redcliffe Gardens, turn right and cross Fulham Road at the pedestrian crossing. Walk down the left-hand side of Edith Grove, taking in some of the lovely buildings on the way. Turn left at the end of the road onto Creemorn Road, marked the A3220 on the map. Pause commentary until you reach this intersection. There are a lot of blue plaques along here to commemorate famous past occupants, but sadly many homeowners have gone to great lengths to hide them, so I will focus on the ones you can easily see. I ask you to avoid lingering directly outside the homes if possible and respect the owner's privacy. After crossing Blantyre Street at 120 Cremorne Road, you will find a blue plaque for Sylvia Pankhurst. She was one of the daughters of Emmeline Pankhurst, whom you saw the grave of in the cemetery. In addition to fighting for women's rights, she was an anti-war campaigner during the First World War and helped Jewish refugees from the 1930s. She died in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, in 1960 when she was given a state funeral after campaigning for their independence. Next door, at 119, you will find this beautiful plaque dedicated to the painter J.M.W. Turner. Pause commentary until you reach there. Turner is most famous for his landscapes. Though some may mistake his loose style of painting as being impressionist, he is actually classified as a romantic painter. When he died, he left most of his fortune to his own charity set up to help what he called decayed artists, and his finished paintings to the National Gallery in London, on the condition that they were exhibited in a purpose-built gallery. Continue down the road, crossing carefully at Riley Street, and at 109 Cremorne Road, you will see two blue plaques for Philip Steer and John Tweed. Pause commentary until you reach there. Steer was an impressionist landscape painter and portrait artist. You can see his painting Seated Nude, The Black Hat in the Tate Britain, and landscapes on their website. He was highly respected as a painting tutor at the Slade School of Art for many years. Next door, we have the Scottish sculptor John Tweed. His birth year was actually 1869, and he studied at the Glasgow School of Art and the Royal Academy. In 1893, he moved to Paris with the hope of being trained by Auguste Rodin, but sadly that didn't happen. In 1895, he married Edith Clinton, who was the secretary of the National Society of Women's Suffrage, and that was when they moved here. He remained here until his death in 1933. His most famous work, the Rifle Brigade Monument, can be seen at the corner of Grosvenor Place and Lower Grosvenor Place near Buckingham Palace. Continue along the street, crossing Milman Street, and on the corner you will see the plaques for Walter Greaves and Hilaire Belloc. Pause commentary until you reach there. Walter Greaves and his brother Henry became the studio assistants of Whistler in 1863 and remained his close friend for over 20 years. He had mixed fortunes and success as a painter and sadly spent the last 8 years of his life as a poor brother of the London Charterhouse. You can see his most famous painting, Hammersmith Bridge on Boat Race Day, at Tate Britain. Joseph Hilaire Pierre René Belloc was a prolific writer, poet, and politician. His book, Cautionary Tales for Children, had narratives such as Jim, who ran away from his nurse and was eaten by a lion, may be a bit harsh for modern ears, though they were actually meant to be humorous and satirical. He wrote over 150 books, and when asked why he wrote so much, he allegedly replied, "Because my children are howling for pearls and caviar." Continue down the road again, crossing Beaufort Street, and just past it you will come to Crosby Moran Hall. Pause commentary until you reach there. Originally built in the 15th century as part of Crosby Place in Bishopsgate, Crosby Moran Hall was moved here in 1910 to save it from demolition. The new owner is restoring the architecture to reflect its Tudor origins, but sadly it isn't open to the public. Further along the road, after crossing Danvers Street, you will come to Roper's Garden and won't fail to spot the bronze sculpture Awakening. Pause commentary until you reach there. Created by Gilbert Ledward in around 1913, Awakening is one of his early works. He went on to make statues for Great Ormond Street Hospital for Sick Children in 1952 and Venus, the Fountain in Sloane Square in 1953. He also designed the crown coin of Elizabeth II in 1953, which had more than 5 million minted. The church you can see just beyond the park is Chelsea Old Church. Pause commentary until you are standing in front of the church, but don't cross the road yet so you can see it easily. I appreciate Chelsea Old Church, which was founded in 1157, doesn't look that old from the outside. This is because it was heavily bombed on the 16th of April 1941, when sadly 5 fire watchers also lost their lives. The church features in many paintings by Whistler and Turner, including Whistler's Nocturne, Blue and Gold, Old Battersea Bridge. The inside retains many original features, including a memorial plaque to Arthur Henry James and the tomb of Sir Hans Sloane, whose collection started the British Museum, the Natural History Museum, and the British Library. There is an additional memorial to him at the back of the churchyard. It is the only church in London to still have chained books, one of which is the 1717 Vinegar Bible, so called because of a misprint of the word vineyard. The church is only open for very limited periods, so please check their website, chelseaoldchurch.org.uk, if visiting here is your priority. They are open for services on a Sunday if you wish to attend. It is Church of England, which is Protestant. Now, back out to the pavement, that's sidewalk to any North Americans listening, along the Chelsea embankment, and just behind the hedges is a small garden with the statue of Sir Thomas More. Pause commentary until you reach there. For almost 3 years, More, who had a fairly modest beginnings, was Lord Chancellor under Henry VIII. He opposed Henry's separation from the Catholic Church and the king making himself supreme head of the Church of England. He also refused to acknowledge the king's annulment from his first wife, Queen Catherine of Aragon, for which he has my respect. For refusing to take the oath of supremacy, he was convicted of treason and executed at Tower Hill in 1535. It is claimed that while on the scaffold he stated, "that I die the king's good servant and God's first." He is buried in an unmarked grave in the church in the Tower of London. The reason his statue is here is he was known to worship at this church, and he is on the list of martyrs for the English Reformation, even though he was opposed to it. He was made a saint by Pope Pius XI in 1935. From the statue, go back out to the pavement and turn left. Turn left again onto Cheyne Walk, and you will be able to see the memorial to Sir Hans Sloane at the back corner of the churchyard. Continue down Cheyne Walk, crossing Lawrence Street, and stop at the corner by Carlisle Mansions. Pause commentary until you reach there. Carlisle Mansions was nicknamed the Writer's Block because so many authors have lived there. These included Henry James, who wrote The Turn of the Screw, the American poet T.S. Eliot, and Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond. Please continue down to the very end of Cheyne Walk. At the corner, turn left, and you should be able to see our next item of interest, the boy with the dolphin statue. Pause commentary until you reach there. If you've already been on my City of London tour, you may recall The Girl with a Dolphin sculpture by Tower Bridge. This piece is by the same artist, Sir David Wynne, but has a sadder story to tell. The boy is modelled on Wynne's son Rowley when he was 11 years old. Sadly, Rowley, who was a founding member of the psychedelic rock band Ozric Tentacles, took his life when he was 35 years old, and David dedicated the piece to his memory. Next, please cross to the opposite side of Oakley Street, and then turn right to cross the pedestrian crossing over Chelsea Embankment. Pause commentary until you reach there, in sight of the bridge. The Royal Albert Bridge was designed by Isambard Kingdom Brunel, who had over 100 of his bridge designs built. It was opened by Prince Albert on the 2nd of May, 1859. As much as I respect Brunel for being an engineering genius, I will confess that I won't be driving over this bridge ever. I felt perfectly safe walking over it, though it was just very loud. If the bridge looks vaguely familiar to you, it may be from the film Sliding Doors, when Gwyneth Paltrow's character Helen says it is special to her as her ancestor helped build it. Once you have crossed, take the gateway to the left near the Wandsworth sign and follow the path to the left until you see a fenced-off section with benches near the river. Pause commentary until you are sitting on one of the benches, weather permitting, of course. You are now in Battersea Park. The park was officially opened by Queen Victoria in 1858, the same year as Chelsea Bridge, which we will pass under shortly. It has a varied history, from hosting the first exhibition football game to be played after the Football Association was formed in 1864, to being partially turned into allotments and a pig farm during World War II, to hosting a huge punk concert in 1978 headlined by the Stranglers. It is now home to tennis courts and cricket pitches, along with the features I'm going to guide you to. When ready, please make your way back to the path and turn left. Walk along the river, take the second path to the right. When you reach Carriage Drive North, turn right and cross the road when safe to do so. Turn sharply left at the first path you come to and head for the gate in the brick wall. Enter the gate and find a bench to sit on to listen to the next section of commentary. Pause commentary until you reach there. I visited in early March, but even then, the Old English Garden was a lovely place to be. I particularly liked the gang of pigeons hanging out on top of one of the pergolas, obviously a good vantage point to spy any tasty treats from. The garden was originally opened in 1900, but had been neglected for years before a local charity that supports people with disabilities, Thrive, took over running it in around 2006. They got a much-appreciated boost in 2012 when garden designer Sarah Price, with funding from perfume company Jo Malone London, helped transform it into the restful oasis it is today. When ready, exit the garden the way you entered and turn right outside the gate. Take the first path that you come to on the right and follow it until you come to the statue of a dog on the left. Pause commentary until you reach there. For the sake of younger listeners, and anyone that's just eaten, I won't go into details as to why the anti-vivisection community felt the need to erect a sculpture in 1903. Instead, I will focus on the controversy around it. The brown dog statue was vandalized so many times that it had to have a 24-hour police guard at one point. On the 10th of December, 1907, police officers, trade unionists, and suffragettes clashed with medical students in one of a series of battles called the Brown Dog Riots. In March 1910, the council quietly removed the statue and had it melted down. This replacement statue by sculptor Nicola Hicks was erected in 1985. Please retrace your steps back to the path you last turned off of and turn right. Once on Carriage Drive North, please turn right and proceed down the road. You will pass some large fountains on the right that weren't running the day I researched the tour, but feel free to detour to them if they are running when you're there. Either way, cross Carriage Drive North when safe to do so, and continue to walk down it until you reach the London Peace Pagoda on the left. Pause commentary until you reach there. The London Peace Pagoda is one of 80 peace pagodas around the world that were instigated by the Venerable Nichidatsu Fuji. This was gifted to Londoners in 1984. The statues reflect the 4 stages in the life of Buddha. Though it is out in the open, it is a sacred monument, so please don't climb on it. Feel free to enjoy the view from the platform, though. It was built by nuns, monks, and followers of the Japanese Buddhist movement, Nipponzan Mehoji, and completed weeks after Fuji passed away at the age of 100. Please return to Carriage Drive North and turn left. If you wish, there is the Battersea Park Children's Zoo on the right if you need a break from graves and architecture with some cute animals. If not, continue straight down Carriage Drive North, past the car park on the left, and turn left onto the first path you come to. Turn immediately right onto the path running along the river, and follow it to the left, taking the pedestrian bridge under Chelsea Bridge. Pause commentary until you reach the tunnel with the large power sign over it. Shortly after passing through the tunnel, you will get your first close look at Battersea Power Station. I'll confess I've been fascinated with the station since I first saw the cover of Pink Floyd's Animals album working in a record shop many years ago. Incidentally, the flying pig balloon that features on the cover escaped and caused flights at nearby Heathrow Airport to be cancelled. Now, please pause the commentary and make your way to the front of the station. Battersea Power Station actually consists of 2 stations. Station A started construction in 1929, and as energy needs grew, Station B began in 1945. This gives the station its unique look with 4 chimneys. The station is one of the world's largest brick buildings and is Grade 2 listed. As having a coal-fired power station so close to a growing metropolis wasn't a healthy option, Station A was decommissioned in 1975, with B following 8 years later. There were many rumors about its redevelopment over the years. I personally remember hearing it was going to be turned into a theme park. It was also kept busy with a number of films shot here, including The Dark Knight, The King's Speech, Lara Croft Tomb Raider, Superman 3, and The Meaning of Life, just to name a few. In 2012, an agreement was reached with Malaysian investors to develop the site into a shopping centre with office and entertainment spaces. The main power station was opened in 2022. Thankfully, the redevelopment has been fairly sympathetic to the station's past, in my opinion anyway. You can still see some of the equipment used, and standing on the upper levels of the old turbine hall really gives you a feeling of the immensity of scale of the station. There is an opportunity to go up in a lift in one of the towers, called Lift 109, as it rises 109 metres, approximately 357 feet. I should mention that lift is the British term for elevator. There is an interesting display about the history of the station while you are waiting to go into an interactive light show presentation that gives you more details and is quite well done. You then go up one lift, climb 39 steps, and then go up the main lift, which gives you a 365-degree view from the top. When I asked one of the very nice employees why somebody should pay over £20 to go up in this lift with an 8-minute time limit at the top, when you can go up skyscrapers in central London, like Horizon 22, for free with no time limit, she pointed out that Battersea is unique in giving a view over central London, as they are not in it, as well as further afield. I will confess I did enjoy the experience overall. So, if you wish to go up lift 109, go to the main entrance in front of you and follow the signs to the ticket desk, which is separate from the gift shop. Pause commentary until you reach there. After completing your visit to lift 109, or if you've decided to skip it, you may wish to have a wander around the various shops and restaurants on the site. The following directions are from lift 109 to Battersea Power Station Underground Station, but as long as you make your way to the south exit of the station, you should be able to follow them. Pause commentary until you are ready to leave the power station. Once back out of the first lift that you took, turn right and immediately left outside of the gift shop. Turn left, and at the end of the corridor, turn left again and head for the down escalator in front of you. Turn right at the bottom of the escalator, heading for Turbine Hall A. Turn left at the end of the corridor and go to the end of the hall. Turn left and go through the short corridor, and the exit doors are on the right. Once outside, go over the pedestrian bridge in front of you and turn left, following the path to the pedestrian crossing. Cross over and take the road slightly to your left, Prospect Way. Follow it down until it forks and, crossing carefully, take the path to the left, which will lead you to the entrance of Battersea Power Station Underground Station. This is on the Northern Line. This is the end of the tour. I sincerely hope you have enjoyed it and will join me again on A Path Less Travelled UK soon.